and he does all kinds of criminal law, traffic to sometimes felonies, and everything in between. So I'll let him introduce himself.
Thank you. As you said, I'm Kent Collins. I'm a criminal defense lawyer here in town. I've been doing this about 35 years. But this is a novel situation, and there's not a lot of precedent to look back on to see what's the proper way to proceed. And given that the situation has just been evolving in the last week or so, there's not a whole lot of guidelines. We've got some here. But, you know, this administration isn't known for hewing to the letter of the law. And I don't expect they will in this circumstance either. So I'll do my best to answer your questions as I can. So just, has anybody got a question? No?
Okay, so anyway, let me start with just a general overview of what's happening. That way, hopefully, it captures the essence of what is going on. So as you know, under Biden administration, the enforcement priorities for removing foreign nationals who are not here legally present was pretty clear. So the enforcement priorities were obviously the criminals with the highest type of criminal charge, you know, murder, rape. In other words, every kind of crime of violence was the highest priority. By that I mean known gang members, mostly in LA, Maryland, New York, with all kinds of tattoos and stuff like that are easily, not that I'm against tattoos, but tattoos are generally easily identifiable as members of certain groups. So they target those, and then obviously there's really no way to tell a US citizen with tattoos versus a non-US citizen with tattoos. So the benefit of doubt is on you, the person, to prove you're a US citizen, which it didn't used to be that way, but unfortunately it is. So that being said, what happened now since Trump took over January 20th, the enforcement priorities are still the same, really. But the big difference here is if they're looking around for a person that has a certain criminal record and has an outstanding warrant or something like that, they will go look for him. And if someone that you know who's not documented is also in that vicinity, they'll pick him up as well. And they have a right to ask, you know, your citizenship status. And most people are terrified, and then the ones that are non-documented clearly show anxiety, and they try to run away or they try to hide, and so they easily stick out. So if you act suspicious or you act afraid, or you try to run away, you're trying to hide, then clearly they're going to come after you and pick you up. And by the way, that also includes visa overstay. It's not necessarily people who jump the border and are hiding. It also includes significant amount of visa overstays. Right now, we're estimating visa overstays in the United States to be north of 2 million people who simply came and stayed and did not go back. So those are very high risk also. Why are they high risk? Because ICE knows about it. Because they know this guy came and did not leave during his allotted time. The ones that jump the border, ICE doesn't even know you exist. So therefore, technically they're less at risk. So then the next group is if you or someone that you know has a green card or a permanent resident card, you might be lulled into some false sense of security that you somehow not at risk. Of course, you're not at risk if you live a crime-free life, have no issues whatsoever with anyone. But the fact of the matter is, if you have like a traffic outstanding warrant, and God help you if you have a DUI or domestic violence that you did somewhere, then guess what? You're gonna get picked up too. So green card really by no means protects you. It does protect you, the fact that no one's looking for you. But the fact is, there's really no rhyme or reason why you should not become a citizen if you're eligible to. I mean, Hussam knows for years and years we've been trying to educate people and inform people to really become citizens, to, that way you have voting rights, you have an actual say in the policies of the government, and you're protected, you're really a whole person. Until you do not have the citizenship, unfortunately you're not. That is the ugly reality of America today. So that's the general overview of what it takes, what the current climate is. Now, that just Kent was telling me earlier, he had 2 clients that ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement agents, told the people falsely that they had a city warrant. But when they got, and these guys didn't know about a city warrant, and they got picked up, and at the jail said, now there's no warrant. What? Because under Trump, now they have quotas. Each district is supposed to pick up a certain amount of people. Obviously, it's a great publicity stunt for him that he's doing something about immigration when the previous guy didn't do anything. In fact, that's quite a lie. Biden deported more people than Trump did in 4 years, if you find that hard to believe. He deported more people. Now this guy deports a few and makes a big noise about it. And that's why it seems to think that they are coming after you. You just not priority, now you are, if you have any kind of criminal record. So that's the general overview. And then I'd be free to take questions if you have any specific questions from anyone regarding their situations. I cannot give you legal advice, but I can generally speak to you about your case without becoming your attorney, and of course be happy to. And I have, as Hussam knows, I offer a lot of pro bono services. If you are really truly unable to afford a lawyer, I'd be happy to do it. So, fire away, Hussam, you're the lead guy.
I wanted to know, first of all, before this ICE thing, like a lot of people in the Muslim community, if you get stopped by a policewoman, what are your rights?
Okay, very simple. If he asks you for a driver's license, you absolutely must give it to him.
Or some form of
Or some form of ID. And here, this is really Kent's area because he deals with a lot of traffic stuff. I'll let Kent answer that.
Okay, that's the question about if I stop you and you have a valid driver's license, is that enough proof of citizenship?
Is that going to prove citizenship?
Yeah, is that enough proof, or you have to have your passport or naturalization?
Technically, yes. Oh, sorry. Technically, as you know, the amount of documents they ask you when you get a driver's license is crazy. They ask you for passport, they ask for just about any damn document under the sun. They ask you for resident card, God knows what they ask. So technically speaking, driver's license is not, I repeat, is not same as being a citizen, because students get a driver's license. People who are illegally here and are in immigration proceedings, they get a work permit, and with a work permit, they get a driver's license too. So that's no way establishes your citizenship. Now, should you carry a passport? That seems like a little bit of an overkill, guys. It's America. You're not supposed to carry your passport. This is not some dictatorship in the Middle East or South America where you need to be carrying your papers everywhere because you're not Caucasian, like Kent is. I'm just making fun of Kent because I make him fun of being a Caucasian. So, that's your answer.
So when
when they scan your driver's license, does it tell them exactly what kind of document you submitted to be able to obtain that driver's license to prove your citizenship?
I have no idea if they keep that all on record, if it goes into a file. I wouldn't think so.
Microphone.
Yeah, that's your answer.
I wouldn't think it does.
When you are a naturalized citizen and you go
Because-
on the driver's license, they want to see your valid passport.
Right. Did they make a copy of it?
I don't know.
I think they just check a box.
That's
You
right.
show it, they check a box that you had a valid passport. But at any rate, if you're asked for your license, you have to turn it over. You have to give them your identification and your immigration status. After that, you don't have to say anything. And I would recommend not saying anything. But if you don't give it the documents they requested that are legally requestable, and you don't do it, then that's obstruction of justice. So, and that's not going to look good when you come up in front of an immigration judge, that you obstructed the officers in their duty. That being said, a driver's license should be good, and they're going to consult their list. If you're on their list, then you're on the list. You're gone. You're going to be in custody anyway, detention.
A passport, a driver's license is not going to save you, in other words. So, back to your question, what kind of identification should you always carry? Of course you should carry a driver's license anyway. That's required of you anyway. You go to a bank, you got to produce your driver's license. You go anywhere for anything of substance, you got to carry your identification anyway. So the requirements or the burden of having identification is not any different. I don't care if it's Trump or I care if it's Biden. You're supposed to have it. It's a good practice that you should have it and should always have it. And again, I cannot stress to you, if anyone that you know is a visa overstay and has been in the country, he or she came legally, and for whatever reason they have not been able to adjust their status and they're not technically illegal, please have them contact me. There's lots and lots of options available. In my track record, we're able to, and it sounds like not a lot, but we are usually able to save 3 out of 10. And that's not a real good record, but still, 3 out of 10 is still 3 out of 10. And these 3 people who didn't know they could adjusted because of the right information. So that's always a good thing to have. See, I can talk to you about hours and hours about the minute differences in immigration law that allow you to become permanent residents, but from what I understand, most of the Muslim populations are permanent residents or they're on student visa, and not a lot of them have jumped the border and come here. But you'd be surprised how many do. The second largest group of people jumping the border, are you ready for this, are Indians. After Mexicans, it's Indians who jump the border. This might surprise you. The largest group of undocumented persons in America after the Mexicans are Indians. Something like north of 600,000 illegal people from India. Bangladeshis are not that far behind. There's about 60, 70,000 of them. The problem with Middle Eastern countries or South Asian countries for that matter, most of them come here legally as a visitor or as a student or as come on a green card or whatever. And generally they don't have problems, but for whatever reason, if they cannot adjust or their visa gets in default or their visa gets whacked, then they're in trouble. But again, I want to really come back to the traffic part of it, where Kent specializes in the stuff and as to what do's and don'ts, because I assume most of our population here is concerned about what to do when they get stopped, right? So,
I tell all my clients when they come in for any reason, any criminal charge, When you're driving, make sure you wear your seatbelt. Make sure you don't speed. Make sure all your lights and blinkers are working. If you maintain the rules of the road, the chances of you being pulled over are kind of slim. If you don't, then they stop you, then they have to write you've committed an infraction or a crime, then they have the right to question you. You don't have to answer, but that's when a lot of people think that they can, if they give their explanation, then the cops will say, oh yeah, that makes sense, you can go. That never happens. So don't try to talk your way out of it, don't say anything. But you do have to respond or it's obstruction.
Have you noticed the clear cooperation between, even from the last presidency, between ICE and local police department? Or do they work separately? The ICE does their own thing, police departments are tracking.
I have no direct knowledge, but I've read that ICE, DEA, and ATF are all working together, and the FBI are all working together on this. And naturally, they're trying to recruit local police departments. In the state of Illinois, the governor there ordered his police departments not to cooperate with any federal law enforcement that was trying to enforce these immigration laws. And in Kansas, I don't think we can hope for that. I mean, Laura Kelly is a good governor, but the legislature is all Republican. And I think that they will make sure that local sheriff and police departments have the authority to work with ICE and all the other agencies.
For our purposes here, for Islamic Society we did on Fridays, most about 2,500 people that will come in 3 hours. Let's say they come here, ICE, and they want us to allow them as an administration to allow them to talk to the public. They're not coming after one certain guy, they're just coming into a mess. What do we do? What are our rights? And on top of that, the rights of the people that are praying.
Well, you don't have to give them a box to stand on to disseminate their view of things. I would say no, don't let them talk. Because the police, their role mainly in criminal investigations is to get you on their side, get you saying yes. And they do that through deceptive questioning. They get you saying yes, and you keep cooperating, and they're saying, oh, you're doing great, we're gonna send you home right after you answer these last questions. And then after you've answered them, you go into detention. So just answer what you're asked. Don't volunteer anything.
No. What I think Kent meant was, on a Friday when you have 2,500 people or lots of people, ICE comes in, they want to talk. You absolutely can't refuse, and you must refuse. They have no authority to enter a private place of worship and demand that they speak to people unless they have a warrant. Clearly, they have to have a warrant, and the warrant has to specify the name of the person, the address, and the warrant must specify the address. And Ken can talk more about that. So the warrant has to have very specific details before they enter private property. This is private property. So let's say somebody's looking for Hussam. It must say Hussam Mahdi, this address, this location, and the scope of what they can. They can run around the entire building looking for you. The search warrant has a very specific dimensions, area described. So Ken can tell you more because he deals with that.
and they don't get a chance to propagandize. You don't have to let them come up in front of the group and give their spiel. A warrant doesn't cover propaganda. They can do their job, but they can't try to convince you that you should help them do their job.
Yeah, you're under no obligation to help them in any way, shape, or form. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, the follow-up question is that, as we yes, without any warranty, they can ask for something. The thing is that media can handle a law, ISIS, or any other agency for the investigation in legal issues, they can go to chance how to define what the address shows, how who you will respond that if they say, okay, we are wanting to come to this church or come to the school. How do we define them?
Okay, so I'm trying to find the question here. So you said saying that if ICE comes to here, how do you respond to them?
Yes, the situation is, you can see, and he was better than us as an attorney. It says, all the media and the narrative that the ISIS can go to anywhere, like churches, mosques, schools, wherever they want to see, right? And other side is, we know that they must have to have this line.
Absolutely. So stop right there. So you're saying, can they go to a place of worship or school? Again,
Asylum? Is that what he's talking about?
no.
Or a sanctuary?
Sanctuary. So the answer is absolutely no, unless the warrant specifies the church and the name of the person they're looking for. You can't just walk in and just say, hey, I want to talk to the kids. I want to find out who's illegal or legal. They absolutely cannot do that.
So let's say they have a warrant with a specific name. Do we have to let them search the facilities for that person?
Yes, you do. You don't have to cooperate with the search, but you do have to allow them the opportunity.
But clearly it has to specify the area, okay? So, right, so for example, you know, if they walk in that front door, it has to specify, that warrant has to specify the entire building, including doors, the hidden basement, upstairs or downstairs. So it has to specify. So they can just willy-nilly walk around, and whoever is the custodian of this place is in charge of this place. So some maintenance person or somebody with some authority for this building must read that. And then cooperate to the extent whatever the warrant says, not one word less or one word more. So well-written warrants, and again, Ken can talk a lot about warrants because that's his area.
Well, a warrant is, there can be search warrants and arrest warrants. A search warrant gives them the right to search, and if they have an arrest warrant with it, during that search, if they find that person, they can serve that arrest warrant. If they come with an arrest warrant but not a search warrant, then they can't even come in the door.
There you go.
They can knock on the door and say, is so-and-so here? And all you have to do is say, no, he's not here. And that's as far as they can go. So there's arrest warrants and search warrants. I don't expect to see many arrest warrants. I think because the search warrant gives it a lot more latitude, and you know, it gets them in the building and gets them talking to people. And sometimes people just don't know that the police aren't on their side in these situations and think they can convince them of their way of seeing things and get out of trouble that way. And that almost never happens. So I would suggest not even try it. Don't try to communicate with them. Just say, look at the search warrant, see what it covers. You know, if it's just the sanctuary, then that's all they get to check. If it says the whole facility, then yeah, they can search the whole facility.
So go ahead, ma'am.
But there again,
Someone
they have
was
to have
asking.
an arrest warrant to actually come in and arrest.
I thought someone had a question. Yes.
International students, you said that they can have the ID, the state ID and driving license, that's all they do. And do we need to carry our passport and I-40 as well?
Absolutely not. You know, because that's what the law requires you. If you're operating a motor vehicle, then the law requires you to have a valid driver's license, valid registration for the car, and insurance. So make sure you have all three.
And then there is a point might come when we are graduated, but we apply for OPT, the work permit. That very period we don't have any legal documents, I would say, I don't know. Actually, that might how skilled we are. When we are waiting for that OPT card.
See, a traffic cop is not going to know all those nuances in the law, okay? Traffic cop doesn't really have any idea about OPT or the wait period between validity, expiration of your student visa versus that, right? But in that period, do you not have a Wichita State ID, or you have that, right? But you do not have a driver's license.
It expires by the time the I-20 expires.
Right. So guess what? I got bad news for you. You can't really drive if your driver's license expired. So it's tough. It's difficult. I understand. So if your driver's license is not valid, you're not supposed to drive. Never mind trying to explain, hey, I'm waiting for this or that, but I got to drive anyway. Well, sorry, you don't have valid driver's license. You shouldn't be driving. Now, do kids drive anyway? Absolutely, they drive.
I saw a statistic last year that said over 40% of all drivers on the road are driving on suspended licenses.
No kidding. Wow.
So the police know that it's almost a 50-50 chance if they stop you that you're probably going to go to jail because drive on suspended is a jailable offense. So the thing to do is just make sure you don't attract their attention. Wear your seat belts, don't speed, make sure all your lights and blinkers work, adhere to all the rules of the road, just don't give them a chance to stop you. And that applies not just to this situation, but to life in general.
Yeah, again, a lot of my undocumented clients obviously do not have a driver's license, yet they drive anyway on Mexican pass, what they call it international license, which really is not that valid anyway. But that's what they try to. And for those type of clients, I tell them, make sure your brake lights work. Make sure your registration is current. You cannot or must not give a reason for a cop to stop you. Brakes lights are working. Indicator right, left and turn lights are working. Headlights are working.
Proof of insurance.
Proof of insurance is a big thing. Then if you have all of these things together, you know, really believe it or not, most cops are reasonable. They're not really looking to just pick you up and take you to jail. Of course not. And they're just like rest of us. Some of them are racist, some of them are not. Some are having a bad day. It just depends on what kind of mood they are. So there are a lot of factors there. There's really not one good, clean answer. But what the good, clean answer is, make sure everything works. On your vehicle, you have the right papers. So that's really the best advice. The other topic I want to cover, Hussam, is you know and I know fully well, tons of international students work cash jobs. They do. There's no ifs and buts about it. You go to gas stations, you go to restaurants, you see these kids working. Should they be working? Absolutely not. Because they are being exploited by the employer who is not paying taxes and paying cash But these poor kids have no choice. They have to make a living. They have to pay the tuition, right? And a lot of immigration raids are happening at these places also, where you go to a gas station, you see a young kid who does not look like, who looks like a student, and a lot of them get picked up, and I send them to Kent because they come to me because they sell alcohol to a minor, cigarettes to a minor. Always get in trouble by those little things like that, and then that's how they end up. Their visa gets revoked, and their visa gets revoked, and they're illegal at that point. Very high risk situation. So we have no idea how many students come to Kent for those things. So if anyone that you know are doing, and I'm certain most of you know somebody who's working cash job. I mean, that's the reality of life, guys. I'm on your side. I'm not trying to say you shouldn't. You got to do whatever you got to do to make a living. That's just life. So, maybe Ken can tell you a little bit about what happens when these kids who are students who get picked up for selling alcohol to a minor at this gas station or selling cigarettes. That happens a lot too.
Well, it's in those situations, it's not life-changing usually. I'm not sure, is that considered a crime of moral turpitude?
It's not, Ken, but their visa gets revoked.
But still, you're putting yourself in jeopardy by doing that. And they don't have to have a warrant to come in there and ask you. You're in a place of business, you're in public. They can say, okay, what's your name? Especially if they expect or suspect you of selling cigarettes or liquor to a minor, which is always a possibility in those places, that's one place they'll go. Another place they'll go is construction sites. Almost all construction jobs, all roofing jobs, all cement jobs are performed by Latinos now. So they see a construction site and cement about to be poured. That's where they'll go because that's where they know they've got some potential arrests. I had a client come in Thursday and they'd visited this was about noon, they'd come to his work site about 9 o'clock in the morning and took 2 guys with them and told them they had warrants that they didn't have when they got them to detention, and they had to tell them why they were there. They didn't have a warrant. They couldn't produce one.
So I have a question on that. So if they can't produce a warrant, does that not give, like, you, the attorney who's defending this person, like, is that not enough leverage to help that person?
Well, in ordinary times, there would be plenty of leverage. But this is Trump times. And Trump doesn't ask permission. In fact, he doesn't even ask for forgiveness. He just does what he wants to do. And maybe somewhere down the line, enough Republicans will back off that to where he will have to adhere to the law. But right now, it's just the Wild West out there. And these agencies think they can do whatever they want to put somebody in the back of the van.
See, go ahead.
So I have
So my question is maybe a little bit different, more so relating to freedom of speech on campuses with regards to international students. As we saw, Trump passed an executive order saying to those students that are international and are voicing support for things such as Palestine, that he'll deport them. And I'm a president of the Palestinian organization, so I just recently kicked out all of the international students from the organization since I believe their education is more important. But some of those people still want to support and help out for that cause or other issues. How do I protect them, and how do they protect themselves? And then what are their rights.
So, young man, you touched on an area that's really, really dear to me, the freedom of speech, because I was a staff attorney for ACLU for years as a volunteer. The good news and bad news. The bad news is, as the president, he has absolute authority to revoke the visa of whoever he deems to be a national security threat. And now, it's a matter of law enforcement officers' opinion. Remember, just opinion, not a fact. That you, a foreign national, are present on U.S. soil. I deem to you to be a national security threat, and guess what? I can deport you. Now, there's no question there's going to be court challenges because you're infringing upon the rights of a person. I don't care if he's legal, I don't care if he's legal, he's on student visa, whatever, he still has First Amendment rights. Now, that's going to take a court challenge to say you cannot deport him for someone who's exercising his freedom of expression under the First Amendment. Now, good luck with that. It's going to take years and years, and before Supreme Court will probably say that Trump is right, because Supreme Court belongs to him. So it's a very, very unfortunate situation, because as a foreign national, he can deem you to be a national security threat. Just for saying something bad about Israel. He absolutely can. So that's the bad news. The good news, as you sound like a smart young man, please remove them from any kind of protest, because they are at risk. But can they do behind the scenes some work to help the cause? Absolutely. They just can't be protesting out in the public. Sure. Just make sure they use aliases, they use some form of the way that their real names are not exposed. Some other way, I'm sure you can. So, where is
How
that?
about if it's a U.S. citizen?
Oh, hell, you can say all kinds of things. You can say, oh, of course you can. You can. Yes, because see, this young kid, obviously somebody says, I'm going to deport you. How the hell you are? You can't, how the hell you are? How the hell can you deport a natural born U.S. citizen? He absolutely cannot. Of course not. But then it's still very uncomfortable and unpleasant that you have to prove that you are a U.S. citizen. It's humiliating, it's degrading, and it takes a while before you get to know where you get to, in other words, you're treated like a criminal. It's unfortunate, but, those are the things that any legitimate protest movement has to take that risk before we eventually justice prevails. So anything else, ladies?
So my understanding of what happened back on the conversation about warrants is just when you have one, when you're trying to identify what otherwise might look like just official language or some sort of official documentation to scare you into, admitting who is there and who is not. My understanding is that that warrant needs to be signed by a judge, but I'm just wondering at what level, are there names of people locally that we need to be looking for that have the authority to sign a warrant of that kind, or are they state level, nation level? What kinds of names of signatures should we be looking out for to determine if that documentation that we provide is legitimate?
As far as I know, and Ken can correct me, it has to be signed by a judge. Isn't that right, Ken?
Right, but the federal agencies are signed by federal judges. So it would be a federal court judge, not a district court judge.
So federal meaning for those who don't know the terminology of federal versus district, federal meaning at the, not the county level, but the...
And not the state level, at the federal level.
At the federal level meaning a DC, Washington,
No.
judge?
Well, we have a federal court here in town. There are 11 districts. all over the country. And we've got a branch here in town, and they have 3 full-time judges. And they would sign, if it was ATF or FBI or DEA, they would be signing the federal warrants. If they can get the local police department and sheriff's office involved in it, then they would have to follow those federal warrants also, and any warrants that they can get district court judges to sign.
Yeah. See, again, general information, general observation, if you will, the way they get the local law enforcement to cooperate, because almost every police department in the country, every sheriff's department in the country gets some sort of a federal grant or federal aid. Technically, the police really are under no obligation to help ICE. But the fact is, they will withhold funds, or they will pretend to withhold funds from the local cops. So guess what? Cops like money. They will do whatever it takes, legal or whether they're authorized or not, to really, let's say, hold you, okay? And simply say on the thing, I think this guy looks like he's not here legally, and then let's put an ICE hold on him. Then you are in a very uncomfortable position that you're going to have to spend a night in jail till you figure out what your status is. You're a citizen, of course you're going to get out anyway, but the fact of the matter, they can make your life miserable for the short term. Just because you look different. You speak different, you act different, you look different, your name is not Anglo, so they have right to, so they just simply put an ICE hold on it. ICE hold is anybody that gets arrested. The guy that's booking you at the jail simply says, we're not sure of his legal status, and boom, with one click of a button, they'll hold you. It's really, really disheartening, guys. Really disheartening, the way the climate is right now, with local cops who are afraid to piss off the federal authorities because they might get withheld on funds. That's what's happened in California or Illinois, like Kent said, because Illinois government says, hell with you, I'm not going to cooperate with you, and he doesn't have to. The Constitution clearly says he doesn't have to. He's the ultimate authority in his state anyway, unless there's a federal crime, of course. Then he doesn't. For state level crimes, he is the boss. So, but the economic pressure on these local agencies is very powerful, because Trump has said, I'm going to prosecute if you don't cooperate. He's let it known to the sheriff's officers, to everybody, if you do not cooperate with ICE officers, I'm going to come after you. How do you think you would feel if you were a sheriff's officer in Wichita, Kansas? Gee, you would cooperate. And these cops who have very little training or no training in dealing with foreign nationals or nationals who look like foreign, they're going to go by the book. Hey, I think he's not legal, so at least let's hold him. And they'll ruin your day if they hold you. So that's what happens, guys. So again, not to stress the obvious over and over, make sure your driver's license is good. Make sure your car registration is good. Make sure the lights work. Make sure you have insurance on you. That's a really good practice anyway. So, anyway, you were saying something?
I just have one personal question. What is the line between the questions you can plead the fifth on and, deny giving an answer, and then questions where you must cooperate? How does just a regular citizen know I must cooperate to this question versus I can plead the fifth on this question?
That's Ken's department.
Well, in this situation, there's only 2 questions, your name and your status, your immigration status. Other than that, they can ask all you want, you don't have to answer. But if you don't give them that information, those first 2 questions, then that will be obstruct. So I would suggest giving your name and immigration status and nothing else. Just say, I want to contact my lawyer, not saying anything until I talk to him.
So in other words, there's only two answers you're obligated to answer. Your name and your status. That's it. After that, you're under no obligation to answer a damn thing.
Even if he is on F1 status?
I don't care what status you're in, legal, illegal, F1 or whatever else you are. Cop stops you, you gotta answer. It's as simple as that. There's no option not to answer.
And I don't think they're going to have a checklist to, next to your name, it's going to say your status and stuff like that. They're just not that organized yet. So if you don't give them that information, then they're just going to have to use whatever they can, and they don't have much because you're not helping them, your friends aren't helping them. So yeah, just do the bare minimum, don't answer any other questions.
So, anything else, Sam?
Yeah, there would be, I think, after we will break for prayers at 4 o'clock.
Okay,
Anybody that's with us, you're more than welcome to the snacks.
of course, and then I'll be happy to answer. My legal assistant Doris just arrived. She speaks Arabic. I had her come by just in case there were some Arabic speakers, so she could translate and talk to them.
We'll break it at 4 o'clock and come back about
Okay.
4 o'clock.
Okay, sounds good.
3:55.
Okay, sounds good. We'll see you in a few.
Thank you very much.
Shut that off.
Anybody else that's on, help yourself.
Personal question.
Okay,
I am a Sudanese national.
okay.
Have